And they said, the one thing we want from you is that you will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And Secretary of State Baker said at that time, famously, we will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. Since then, we have moved it 1,000 miles to the east and 14 countries, and we put Aegis missile systems in Romania and Poland right near Russia's border. When Russia put nuclear missiles in Cuba, which is farther away than we now have, to Moscow, we would have invaded if they hadn't withdrawn them. My uncle was president then. We would have gone in. And my uncle knew why the Russians had done that. He did it because they did it. Khrushchev did it because we had put nuclear missile systems, Jupiter systems, in Italy and in Turkey. And my uncle, my father, met with Ambassador Dobrynin secretly and made a secret deal. If you remove your missiles now, we will take ours out of Turkey. So, the Russians have been invaded 3 times through the Ukraine. The last time they were invaded, the Germans killed 1 out of every 7 Russians. They destroyed all of it, 1/3 of Russia to rubble. They burned the fields. It's as if my uncle said this in his 1963 speech at American University. He said they destroyed the equivalent of destroying the entire part of the United States from the East Coast to Chicago. Imagine if all the wheat fields, all the forests were burned, all the cities reduced to rubble. That's what was done. They have a legitimate concern about us moving NATO into the Ukraine. We would never let them put missile systems in Canada or Mexico. We would invade if they did that. And we have to be able to put ourselves in their positions.
We have a lot of questions to get to, but you know that the vast majority of Democrats fully and consistently have supported President Biden on his support of Ukraine in this war. You seem to be out of step with the voters of the party that you're asking to vote.
That doesn't make it right, Elizabeth. That does not make it right. We need to be a moral nation. We need to restore our moral authority around the world. If every Democrat is against me on that, I'm still going to say it. I'm going to tell people the truth. And our leadership.
And you think giving part of Ukraine to Putin is restoring our moral authority?
I didn't say giving part of the Ukraine to Putin. Putin agreed originally to leave Ukraine alone if we signed the agreement. So, Putin was not demanding any part of Ukraine, even though the ethnic Russians voted 90-10 in the Donbass to join Russia. He said no. Oh, I don't know what the negotiation would look like exactly, but I know what they agreed to before, and it was a reasonable agreement. They just did not want NATO to go into Ukraine, and we said we don't care. By the way, when we originally said that we were going to do this, George Kennan, who is the most important diplomat in American history, he was the architect of the containment policy after World War II. He is a deity in American statesmanship. He said, if you go into the Ukraine, you're going to force the Russians to have a violent response. William Perry, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of State, said, if you go into the Ukraine with NATO, I'm going to resign because you are forcing the Russians to retaliate violently. And William Burns, who is now the head of the CIA, was then the U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, said the same thing. He said, you cannot move NATO into the Ukraine because it is going to force the Russians to retaliate violently. And he said, he called it a red line. He said, if you cross that red line, Russia is going to have to go into the Ukraine. So all of us knew that. All of our diplomats knew that. And the comic book depiction that the American people have been told by their leadership, I want to tell you something. The seats that you're sitting on today, do you know who first had put those seats in here? The very seats you're sitting on. Donahue, Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue was the most important, the most popular daytime host. And do you know what happened to him at the height of his popularity? He told the truth about the Iraq war. He said there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. 2 days later, he lost his job. And that's why those seats are empty. So we have to, and now we all know he was right. So what I'm saying today, I know 10 years from now, everybody's going to understand this is the truth. We have been lied to by our press, by our government, and we need to start hearing the truth, and we need to stop paying attention to these comic book depictions that say there's bad guys and good guys, and America's always the good guy, and we never make mistake. We have to understand there's nuance, there's complexity in our relationships, and we need to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of our adversaries if we're going to have true peace in the world, which we all want.
All right, this takes us to a question from Sandy Muller.